It's like the Matrix. There is no spoon. There is no cycle. I think Bitcoin is undervalued. I think at the very bare minimum, we should be 200, 300,000 right now.
Samson Mow, CEO of Jan3, creator of the Aqua Wallet, and one of the most outspoken voices in Bitcoin, made a bold set of predictions for 2026. Bitcoin hitting 1.3 million, Elon going all in, a country finally issuing a Bitcoin bond. We sat down to find out where he stands and what's really driving the market right now. Stick around because Samson doesn't hold back. Like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.
It's like the Matrix. There is no spoon. There is no cycle. It's just people believe there is a cycle. And I think there's a bit of either panic in the market that the cycle is coming, coupled with a little bit of market manipulation, maybe a la Jane Street, that pushed us down because it was a very anomalous downtrend and it was a very aggressive, there's very aggressive sell pressure that was pushing us very, very low. And if you look at the timing, that was around the time of the 10 a.m. slams, which have oddly enough have vanished since then too. So I think it's just a combination of a few things that people were worried about the 4-year cycle, so they're going to sell and try to sell the top and avoid going down with the ship. And there's a bit of manipulation from big players in the market that are pushing the price down for their own ends.
Yeah, I think a lot of the FUD around that time too seemed quite coordinated. So we had a lot of talk about quantum, which is one of those things, a classic on the Bitcoin FUD dice that just people have been talking about for years, but seem to come up again. We had FUD around Bitcoin improvement proposals. So a lot of that stuff felt like it was kind of coordinated as well.
Yeah, not just quantum, but I think what else was there? There was some other FUD at the time too. What was it again?
The Bitcoin improvement proposal stuff.
No, there was something else. So it was all it was Bitcoin lacking fungibility and privacy, and then there was a big push for Zcash, right? So it's just like if there's any cycle, it's a cycle of FUD, right? And the same old narratives come back again and again that Bitcoin's there's a big problem with Bitcoin because it's not private, and then people are pushing Zcash on the market, and then of course the quantum FUD. Quantum computers are going to kill Bitcoin, and it's dangerous. And you couple that with people's just natural apprehension of a 4-year cycle, like going to the down leg of the cycle, and it all kind of pushes Bitcoin price lower.
So another thing that seems to happen in cycles is smart contract blowups, right, and stuff in DeFi. So over the last couple of weeks, we've had another string of pretty big blowups in DeFi, bunch of new hacks and exploits. And on top of that, it looks like there might not be a lot of decentralization in decentralized finance. Does any of this stuff surprise you?
Not really, and I think it should not surprise anybody at this point. If you look back at the history of altcoins, especially like Ethereum, it's just hack after hack after hack, and as the ecosystem has grown larger, you see more and more hacks too. So it's just more reason to be Bitcoin only, and a lot of people miss this point. The Bitcoin maximalist mindset is not that we don't. We don't well we don't like the other stuff, but it's more about protecting your time. Sailor has the famous quote, guard your energy, guard your time. And that's really what it's all about. Do you want to always be chasing after some gain, some yield on some DeFi stack that's recursive in nature, or do you want to buy and hold Bitcoin and have peace of mind? So that incident that you're talking about, I kind of am aware of something that happened, but I have no idea what the details are. I know it's like some recursion and some funds are trapped, but I don't know exactly what happened, nor do I want to know exactly what happened because that's just the same thing that has been happening for the last decade. And, your most valuable resource is your time. Why do you want to care about these things? Why not just buy the one immutable, decentralized asset and sit on it and enjoy your life?
Yeah. Yeah, I really think since 2021, since that cycle, the industry has kind of forked into a bunch of different branches. And my focus has been security tokens and Bitcoin. And a lot of the stuff that's happening in other parts of what you might broadly call the digital asset industry, I don't understand. And there's big players that I've never heard of. And I think, and I also noticed that when I was at Blockstream, there was people in kind of that 2021 cycle that didn't know about like the history of Bitcoin or the OGs. They didn't seem to be particularly impressed that I worked at Blockstream or that I worked for Adam Back or with Samson Mow. Like none of these names would resonate with some people. So it's interesting how the industry has diverged into different forks and branches.
Yeah, I would definitely say there is kind of a wall between the Bitcoin side and the everything else side. And it is kind of a barrier. Like I don't know a lot of those people, and I think they don't know a lot of the people on this side too. Probably they know Sailor. They can't not know Sailor, but you go one step down into Adam and others, and they're just oblivious. Nor or maybe they are aware, but they don't care. Similar to the way that we don't care about some DeFi protocol guy. If you ask me who made I don't know, pick something. Uniswap. I don't know who made it. That's the kind of wall between the sides.
Yeah. And so what do you think? So why does this keep happening? Why do people keep putting capital into these decentralized finance products or these super complicated smart contract protocols? Why does this keep happening?
I think it's just the universal chase for yield, right? If you look at a lot of the DeFi stuff, it is, well, there's the original sin, which is the ICO, printing your own money and selling it to people to get Bitcoin, right? That's the entire thesis of the ICO um, boom in like 2014, 15, 16. You print your own token, you sell it to someone else. Now that that is done, it's all about amplifying your gain, extracting yield. So a lot of these protocols, they let you stake, and then the staking, you don't want to stake it because it's not liquid. So then they wrap that in some other thing and they let you restake it. And I can't give you an exact model of it because I don't know, but it's really just a house of cards built on top of quicksand. And people want yield, they want gains, they want to extract value from these protocols, and they're not really robust protocols. And I think this is also why a lot of security tokens are issued on a liquid network, because it's robust, it's durable, and stable. You don't really want to issue a security token on something that might be deemed a security. That was largely the kind of cautionary tale, but then the SEC kind of said, yeah, they're not securities, which I don't think is correct. They are securities, but you don't want to issue a security on top of an unregistered security. And then the entire tech stack is not optimized for protocol level security and just resilience against security breaches, hackers, and everything like that. So it's almost a honeypot for people to break into and loot. And I think it's only going to get worse as more powerful AI models are released, like Claude and Mythos. That model, they've been hyping it up, saying it's like found lots of 0 days. I don't know how true or how accurate those claims are, but that is definitely the direction a lot of the AI models are moving in. They're getting more and more advanced, and they're able to find these obscure vulnerabilities. And every blockchain type protocol out there is largely a honeypot. It's like if you're not secure, you're a honeypot. You're going to have people attacking it, trying to loot the protocol. And I think for a lot of these things, they're just going to get pwned left and right, just like we're seeing today. Yeah, we're still working on nation state adoption. We've shifted our strategy a lot. Instead of the top most down approach, meeting with the head of state, president, prime minister, we've tried to undertake directly creating some projects and working with governments to do things in the mining sector or securities. So we've done some proposals for Bitcoin bonds, some STRC like instruments that they could launch too that would let them accumulate Bitcoin budget neutrally. And it's a slower process, but I think that will yield more dividends in the future rather than just having a nice meeting and a photo op with head of state. and then nothing happens after, which is kind of our experience so far. So more pragmatic, more partnership type arrangements and building things together.
Yeah, I think the whole Bitcoin community, we had a lot of anticipation for the idea of Bitcoin bonds, first with the Volcano token, and then there was a lot of talk when Trump was elected about the Bit bonds in the US, and then there was rumors about Bhutan, and none of it emerged. None of this, nobody pulled the trigger on it. Why do you think nobody has done it, and why does it make sense?
Well, it's like the story of the grasshopper and the ant, right? So do you want to prepare? And to prepare means you're doing a very long term outlook, planning for the next 20, 30 years, maybe 50. And the cycle for politics is much shorter. It's 4 to 5 years. And within that 4 to 5 year cycle, there's maybe 2 years that you are quite productive. The first year, you're consolidating, reorganizing, and the last year, you're concerned about re-elections or you're leaving and you don't want to risk anything happening. So within each 4 to 5 year political cycle, there's maybe half of that to work with. And within that period, it's like you're fighting for attention to plan for a long term economic project that has a risk attached to it, political risk, economic risk, and just reputational risk. So that is kind of why I believe it's very challenging to get nation state adoption unless the head of the state is a Bitcoiner and they understand it and they've gone down the rabbit hole. But that's not the norm. Like if you look at Bhutan as an example, they had a very large lead because they mined so much Bitcoin. And then recently, I think in the last few months, they've been selling it. And I'm not sure why, because they could have borrowed against it. They could have done many things. They could have monetized it through selling options. And that's just not what we've seen. So I think you're kind of fighting for someone to understand Bitcoin and to think about economic growth in this angle of adopting a new form of money while they're worried about other things or they're involved in some war or conflict and they have to appear on the world stage and like say things that we're going to help defend or we're not going to defend, but it's just a constant struggle. And you kind of have to couple that with a just the innate inability of people to understand money. And there's an interesting AI article that came out the other day, which is some AI models are solving these mathematical problems that have been unsolved for maybe 100 years or more around that level. But these mathematical problems, every mathematician, they're saying they took a wrong turn when they encountered that problem. And because they took that initial wrong turn to solve the problem, they never solved them. And that's why they are unsolved. But AI models are able to reason through it in a totally different, unhuman way, and they solve these problems. And I think there's a direct parallel there to Bitcoin that, you know, you have to have this weird genetic mutation that you're interested in privacy, sovereignty, bearer assets, the truth, mathematical purity, computer science, and you have all these kind of mental genetic mutations, and you kind of fall down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and you understand Bitcoin, and other people just don't. They might have one genetic mutation, which is mental genetic mutation, which is they like hard assets, and then went the other way as the 99% of or 100% of mathematicians in that case, but they go down the road of gold and they think gold is great, and they can't get over this mental hurdle that there is something newer and better and is world changing.
So of those three countries that we talked about, El Salvador, Bhutan, the US, do you think any of these three are still candidates to do a Bitcoin bond, or do you think is there someone else that you think we could add to the list?
Well, I'm always hopeful, and I think it'd be really nice if El Salvador did it. I think they have some challenges there with the IMF if they can do it.
I think those can be addressed. I think those can be addressed.
It can, and there are creative ways to solve all these types of problems. Bhutan, I'm hopeful too that they can they can do it. I mean, it is in their own best interest to create some sort of Bitcoin instrument like this. The bigger it gets, the faster the interest is going to be. And there is really no way to grow out of that. So you kind of have two avenues here. One is the AI supergrowth phase. I think that's the Elon Musk route, that AI will supercharge everything. The economy will grow 100x, and GDP will grow massively. And then you have the other more um, more negative view, which is there's going to be some major problems there. Debt is going to increase faster than economic growth and GDP, and there's really no way out of that. And that means there's going to be a big correction in the markets, and you know equities will go down, bonds will take a hit, and who knows what's going to happen then? Is it a recession or a depression or a Great Depression? Nobody really knows. But I think the thing that we do know is that the government will try to avert that no matter what they do. And I believe that Bitcoin is an avenue to achieve that goal. If you transition from one economy into another economy, a fiat economy into a hard asset economy, you can avert that crisis. And I think that is what they will end up doing. They will need to create some sort of Bitcoin backed instrument to sell debt. And it might look something like STRC. It might look something like a Bitcoin bond or a Bit bond. I'm not sure. But Bitcoin is the only growth channel that lets us avert that monetary crisis.
My hope still is that one of these new capital centers, like El Salvador, or I don't think you could call Bhutan a capital center, but I mean they're mining Bitcoin. They seem to understand the value proposition, or UAE, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, places like this. I think it would be great if they would be the first to issue these and kind of like double down on what they've been doing over the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are a lot of countries that need something like this. And I think it's becoming more and more apparent that countries, nation states, they need some solution. They're just not sure what the solution is. Like if you look at Canada, the solution is a Canadian sovereign wealth fund backed by debt, right? So
Wealth fund, yeah.
like it's like imagine a room full of blind people. They've got their eyes closed and just sort of feeling around. They know there's a problem. They can feel the problem, and they don't really know how to fix it, but they're trying to fix it in some way, right? But yeah, the clearest avenue is really Bitcoin. I've thought about this at length. There's no other way to get out of this mess than to switch currencies, switch to a hard asset. And the first countries that do that change are the winners in the future, right?
Yeah. So Samson and I are both Western Canadians. What do you think the chances are of our central banker, Prime Minister, allocating to Bitcoin for the new sovereign wealth fund?
0.
I think so.
Only hope we have is that somehow Pierre Poilievre gets elected PM and something happens there, or Alberta leaves and that forces other provinces to reconsider, and then the Canadian Union kind of dissolves and the problem goes away. The issue is sort of a root cause of democracy, which is you give people free stuff to vote for you, and they get addicted to the free stuff, which is not actually free. It's just their money redistributed. And we're kind of reaching the end phase of this sort of tit for tat democracy, which is they're running out of stuff to give people. And that's why we have the sovereign wealth fund that is funded by debt. Or Carney was on YouTube begging Canadians to invest in it, right? Like, this is not a sovereign wealth fund by any definition. You're just taking a word and giving it new meaning when it already has meaning.
Especially in Canada, where they tax you for everything too. And then, to develop the country, on top of the taxes, we also need you to invest in this additional product. What's that?
Yeah, and I mean, this is on the heels of the gravel parking lot spaceport, right? Like, your money is going into these weird projects, and this is just going to amplify and exacerbate the problem. Like ArriveCan, the $54 million app, that is basically an app with a database that you could vibe code in an afternoon, like not even an afternoon, an hour with Claude, or anything. But this fund is just going to waste money, waste taxpayer money on projects that they deem to be of national strategic importance. And I saw someone else breaking it down, saying, they created all these regulations and red tape, and now to get around those regulations, the way is to get money from the fund, right? So it's almost like corruption in physical form.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing. I do think, yeah, Canada needs a hard reset, and I think maybe that comes from Quebec separation, maybe that comes from Alberta separation, but I think something extreme needs to happen to kind of get it going again.
Well, the problem with Quebec is they get too much free stuff, right? It goes back to the root cause, free stuff, and they're not going to leave. But Alberta has incentive because they're footing the economic bill of the country, right? It's the
While their economy is being throttled.
Yes, that too at the same time. So, something's got to give. It can't continue like this.
Maybe there's reason to be more optimistic generally because when I had that conversation with Adam a couple of years ago, we didn't have AI. It wasn't as developed as it is now, and we didn't have the realistic opportunity for robotics like I think we do now. So the way out of this, and I think we're obviously like the demographic stuff, the global conflicts, as Mark Carney said, this like period of like uncertainty and tension or whatever he calls it all the time. We're clearly in a fourth turning, and I think more people are acknowledging that we're in a fourth turning and things are changing. And we have technology now, and maybe this will be the first turning that we can escape without a global war because of technology. We have AI, we have robotics, and we have Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think definitely these are the tools for hope. Like not just any AI, but self-hosted AI, right? It's like bearer money, and then you have self-sovereign AI that you can run locally. So these are promising things, and actually, like a lot of the frontier models that are open are coming out of China, right? Maybe one from Facebook, but the there's a big push now to release these open source models, and that is really, really a beacon of light in a very dark time, that you have the potential to have these tools at your disposal and you're not controlled. At the same time that's happening, I think there's legislation in the US being pushed to rate limit your use of a car with sensors and cameras inside to detect if you can drive it, which is definitely the opposite of self-sovereign and a bearer type instrument, right? It's not your car anymore. But all of these things are coming to a head. You have increasing control of money, and the push for CBDCs that's kind of died off now. But
I think it's still bubbling out there. Yeah.
yeah, it is still bubbling. And then you have this push for open AI, and at the same time, the centralized AI providers are throttling or limiting or trying to control people's usage or off ramping, kicking you off their platforms. So it's just definitely it is the battlefield with different ideologies playing out and all taking shots at one another on that battlefield. It could be well. So let's see. Let's look at what he's got. He says he has like a quarter of a Bitcoin personally. Like, he said that publicly. Um, SpaceX has Bitcoin on balance sheet, which means now they've absorbed XAI and X. So that whole SpaceX conglomerate with AI and social media, it has a Bitcoin treasury or Bitcoin reserve. Um, Tesla, I think, still has some. They sold some, but they still have some in their reserves. They're probably like in the top 100. But he has his toes in the Bitcoin pool, and I think he's got to come to the realization that he needs to protect himself, right? Like, he fought hard for Trump to get elected, and he probably angered a lot of people on the other side. And
And all of Canada. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, that too. But Trump's term is ending, and it's unclear what's the procession of power transfer. Is it Democrats in the next term, or is it Republicans or a third party? Who knows? But what we have seen is countries and states are getting more desperate. So the reason why I predicted he would get into Bitcoin in a big way is because of his friends in California, the um, all in podcast guys, Chamath, David Sachs, and
Jake Howe.
yeah, the other guys, the like they're getting hammered by California, right? California was trying to impose this billionaire wealth tax, and I like Chamath posted like they have a provision in there that they can just shift it to other people, right? It's being pushed through as a way to tax the billionaires because that is palatable to normal people. But they have a provision to just get, normal people too. So you can see the desperation there, just like you have this desperation in Canada to somehow stimulate economic growth out of nothing because we don't have much outside of Alberta and natural resources like, forests and whatnot. But, you know, California, what are they doing? They're running a massive deficit. They don't have enough money and they need to get money, right? So what does any government or administration do? They try to tax you, and they tried, and I think they're failing because a lot of people just left. But you can't have this level of this very high profile wealth grab attempt happen to Elon's friends, and Elon not register it in his mind that that could be me next, right? Today it's California. And yes, you can move to Florida. Yes, you can move to Texas. But what about later on? Like, where do you flee to? You know, I think there's like a story Peter Thiel bought a mansion in Argentina. And people are saying, yeah, he's like ahead of the curve and he's going to move to Argentina. But, things change, governments change, and political ruling parties change. And there is only one thing that helps you avoid that. And you know the answer, right? It's gold. No, just kidding. It's Bitcoin.
It's technical. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Tether Gold. But you only have one neutral asset in the world that cannot be seized, and that is the answer. He's got to reach that conclusion soon. We know he knows about Bitcoin. He talks about Bitcoin. We know he likes Dogecoin, but he's a smart guy. He's got to add 2 and 2 and get 4 eventually. So that's my prediction that he will.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of overlaps there, right? Too, like his, freedom of speech ties in very well with Bitcoin, energy, data centers, data centers in space, like all of this stuff. I think matches up very well with Bitcoin. So I think there's a lot of circles overlapping there on the Venn diagram. All right, okay, another one of your big predictions for this year is that Bitcoin is going to outperform all metals. So obviously, we're talking about gold here and silver, and we're going to hit 1.33 million.
Yes.
How do you come up with your target prices, Samson?
Well, I was predicting 1 million for a few years, and I think it is time. It is time to increase the number. And 1.33 sounds like a good number, right? 3 is a lucky number in Chinese. So
6 would be better, or 8, yeah.
yeah, but 1.88 might be on the high side. Not really. I don't think so, but I have to kind of pick a number that people think might be kind of reasonable. So 1.33.
What do you I love how you haven't hit your original target price and you've upgraded it already.
Yeah, because I think Bitcoin is undervalued. I think at the very bare minimum, we should be 200, 300,000 right now, right? If we had a similar run up to silver, that would be where we're at. So why can we outperform metals? Because metals already ran. Gold almost doubled, and silver, tripled, quadrupled. That's they've done their run. So I think they're going to decline, and Bitcoin will start to capture some of that value, because unlike gold and silver, there is actually a finite amount of Bitcoin, right? And it's quantifiable. And you have buyers of last resort like Sailor and soon BSTR and others that are just going to buy Metaplanet, right? They're the
Tether as well, yeah.
Yeah, Tether as well. The rate of accumulation. But speaking of Tether, Paulo is overdue for a buy. You have to tell him like smash buy, smash buy. But the rate of accumulation is just incredible at this kind of bear market territory, right? In the 60s and 70s now, it's still like they're raising capital like crazy to buy. Sailors buying billions every week. And I don't think people understand that that is not sustainable. You know the saying, the greatest trick the devil ever played on the world was convincing the world that he didn't exist. The greatest trick, the Bitcoin markets has played is they're convincing people that there's unlimited Bitcoin and paper Bitcoin can suppress price indefinitely. But I don't think that's true. You're going to see a suddenly movement and everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, Bitcoin is scarce. And yes, there's a lot of demand for Bitcoin and there's still a lot of demand for Bitcoin, right? This is why I don't think cycles matter. If you look at the landscape now, like when have we ever had a buyer that is completely insensitive to price? That has never happened before strategy and other treasury companies emerge, right?
Yeah, and I think you can kind of see that in the post price peak price performance. I think in previous cycles, they would last a long time and it was depressing. And a lot of them were like, you have you questioning your life decisions. I don't think this one has been as painful at all. Like, we really haven't come back that much. And we're already back up around, 80-ish. So I think that's pretty optimistic. So maybe what's different in this cycle is we don't, I mean, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it, but maybe we're not going to have that super steep 80% price correction like we have in the past.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have that just because the market structure of Bitcoin has fundamentally changed, right? Like you have the ETFs, and the ETFs was the main reason why I said Bitcoin can have this massive run because there's no more blocker. Every prior cycle bull run has been muted because the exchanges could not onboard people quickly enough, or Coinbase keeps going down. But there's always been some negative catalyst headwind that stopped us from going. But with the ETFs, it's almost like it's like a layer two, for lack of a better word. There is no bottleneck. Anybody with a Robinhood brokerage can go and buy Bitcoin, right? Or Fidelity investment account, you name it, any number of those, right? And now you have more ETFs. Morgan Stanley has their ETF now, right? So you can see where things are going. Um, and the structure has changed. People are not buying Bitcoin at 70K anymore, or 77 or 8, whatever it is now. It's still massively undervalued. They're buying Bitcoin at 40, $50. They're thinking in terms of IBIT, or $60 for FBTC, or whatever Morgan Stanley's is, right? The unit bias has shifted there. And then you combine that with the treasury companies, and I just don't see us ever having an 80% drawdown in the future, because it's really hard actually to push an asset class down that much, especially when it is finite, and especially when you have these entities that are able to buy at any price. Like if we went to 60 and Saylor was not able to generate capital to buy, then I would think, yeah, that it maybe will go lower. Who knows? But the fact that we can defend it so aggressively and with so much demand, it just shows me like it is a different landscape now. It's totally different than anything we've ever seen before. This time is different.
Speaking of layer twos, I think last year was a fairly big year for Liquid, right? The biggest layer two for Bitcoin. In terms of the security token industry, it emerged as one of the top 5 or top 3 STO issuance protocols. How would you kind of assess the state of Liquid at the moment? I mean, we've had a couple. It's been, I think, quite well known for a couple of years. What is working with Liquid and what isn't working?
I think Liquid had the challenge and the benefit of organic growth. Like there was no ICO, there's no token. People were using it because it was useful, and that does not mean you're going to see hyper growth like some purpose-built blockchain for something that is centralized, right, and has a token. So liquid growth, I think, like we're seeing more transactions now than ever before. I don't have the exact numbers, but I saw a report from Chase, and we're seeing all-time high volumes right now. And like the security token side, there's just a massive spike in issuance in Liquid. I think we're either like number 2 or 3 now, right, in terms of raw security issuance on Liquid.
Yeah, in terms of proper security tokens, I think RWXYZ splits it out as I forget what they call it, distributed and represented. I think one was like a proper security token, and another one is like a corporate bank kind of tokenization one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is a very bullish time for Liquid, and it's only going to get more and more bullish, right? We have a lot of new features planned for Aqua, our Bitcoin wallet, and we'll bring new assets into Aqua for people to swap to and to use. Like we have an integration coming out for Pix. So one of our biggest markets is Brazil, actually, using a Brazilian stablecoin called DPix, and we're adding the ability to top up your DPix from your bank account from Pix. So it's only going to get more bullish for Liquid as more utility comes to the chain, and like we've also seen people asking us to support AMP assets, so security tokens with the AMP issuance protocol, and that's something we're looking at too. So maybe we'll have swap markets for all these things. We'll have more different types of instruments that you can buy and hold and earn yield from in Aqua and on Liquid.
Oh, that's great. So right now it's kind of like your savings account, your checking account, like with USDT and with Bitcoin, and maybe you'll have like kind of an investment side to it as well, where you can get some return on your assets.
Yeah, that's the plan, and it's real assets, real world assets or wrapped assets. So it's not rehypothecated DeFi stuff. We're aiming for quality things on Liquid and in Aqua. Yeah, see, I think they're trying to promote their own thing. Like Chamath is a major offender in this. He loves to say Bitcoin is fully traceable. No central bank will ever hold it. But that's simply not true. And let's we're very much Liquid network maximalists here. Let's just put Liquid aside for a second. Even the Lightning Network offers incredible amounts of privacy, you know? So Bitcoin already has everything it needs to succeed in the world. It's just people are willfully misleading the public by saying these types of things. And maybe people buy these arguments without doing any research of their own. But anyone that's used Aqua, anyone that's used a Lightning wallet can tell you that there is privacy on Bitcoin, right? And if you use the main chain, you know, permissionlessly, let's say you mine some Bitcoin or you bought Bitcoin peer to peer, it is anonymous. The point at which it's not private is when you buy it on an exchange and you withdraw and then the exchange knows this is your address. It's that's not the way Bitcoin was designed to be used. So you buy from exchange. It is money. And Satoshi sent the first coins to Hal Finney. He didn't send it to an exchange and Hal Finney got it from an exchange, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of the early messaging on Bitcoin was like very libertarian, right, and kind of anti-government, where it was. I think that was when people thought that Bitcoin was more anonymous, I guess, kind of like Silk Road type stuff. And it was like, we want to be able to buy and sell what we want to be able to buy and sell. We want to be able to do transactions without the government knowing. We don't necessarily want the government to be able to tax us on every transaction. A lot of that message has kind of gotten lost a little bit. Like even the Honey Badger logo, we don't really use that as much. I think that's a great logo. I'd love to see us bring back the Honey Badger of money a little bit. Maybe that's a recommendation for the Cypherpunk store.
Maybe.
But I think some of that stuff has kind of gotten lost a little bit as we've tried to appeal to like the institutional and government audience. But I do think there's a lot of value in that. And maybe that's the quiet part that we don't need to say too much out loud. But
Yeah, it's definitely. I can see why you can say that because the landscape has shifted, right? There's more focus on treasury companies and things like that, and where are the builders building tools for your average person that gives them some degree of privacy, right? I don't think privacy is a bad thing. I think governments that want complete surveillance and control think it's a bad thing, but privacy is very much needed for your average person. A lot of our users that use Aqua, they're using it because they enjoy the private the confidential transactions in Liquid Tether, because there have been cases where they've sent like a Tron transaction to someone else, and that someone else, maybe he's his cousin or brother is a criminal, and they looked up your wallet and then they go and rob you, right?
Yeah, Rocello from Brazil has a great story on that, right? On doing an OTC transaction.
Yeah, they can limit you. People don't understand this. Your money is not really your money. It's at the whim of the bank, whether they give it to you or don't give it to you. And you can just search anywhere. Guy trying to withdraw cash, and the bank is asking you 20 questions. What are you going to do? And there's even funny videos where they're making stuff up, like, "Oh, I'm buying drugs," and then they just film the reaction of the bank teller. But that's not really money. It's not yours. It's someone else's. You gave it to them, and there's no obligation whatsoever for them to give it back to you.
So that's kind of the fork of the road we're in right now. Is it's like some all-controlling dystopian AI that tracks all your movements and transactions and censors it with CBDCs, or the other fork is infinite abundance, data centers and robots in space and Bitcoin, right? I think that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, that's a good way to wrap it up. You need self-sovereign AI. You need the ability to not be reliant on any grid. Data centers in space is a good one, right? Solar energy up there is abundant, and you need permissionless, immutable, censorship-resistant money.
Samson Mow has been one of Bitcoin's loudest advocates for years. And whether you agree with his price targets or not, the structural arguments here are hard to ignore. Treasury companies accumulating at any price, ETFs removing the last bottlenecks, and nation-states slowly running out of road on fiat. These aren't cycle arguments. These are macro arguments. If you've been sitting on the sidelines, now might be the time to ask yourself, what's your plan when the suddenly moment hits? If you got value from this, smash the like button, drop your biggest takeaway in the comments, and subscribe so you catch every conversation like this. And if you're serious about protecting your Bitcoin, check out the link below. We'll see you in the next one.